You're not here by accident. If you found this message, it's because part of you already knows there's something about you that doesn't fit the normal mold. You've never been just one thing. You felt the pull of light, the call of darkness, and somehow both reside within you. But what if I told you that's not a contradiction? What if the ones who carry angelic and demonic power within them are not broken but chosen? What if the very tension you feel inside, the duality, the inner war, it's actually the mark of your calling? Let's begin with a truth most people fear to say out loud. Not all chosen ones are made of light. Some are forged in fire, in trauma, in rebellion, in chaos. Some are born under stars that carry both blessings and burdens. And some, very few, are born carrying both codes inside them, the divine and the infernal, the sacred and the profane. These are the rarest types of chosen ones, not because they are better, but because they are more complete. They carry the totality. They have the blueprint of duality embedded in their soul, and that duality is their power. But here's the twist. The world doesn't know what to do with them. Religion tells them to suppress the darkness. New Age spirituality tells them to bypass it, and society tells them to numb it. But the truth is that the ones who carry both angelic and demonic energy are here to transcend the old systems entirely. There are 7 types of these chosen ones. Each type is unique. Each carries a different blend of energies. But all of them share the same burden. They are misunderstood, judged, feared, or idolized, but rarely seen. And the first type is the silent warrior. These are the souls who appear calm, peaceful, and even fragile on the surface, but inside they are forged in war. They've battled demons since childhood, internal and external. They were never allowed to be just children. They had to survive. They had to protect. And yet they never turned cold. They never lost their light. These warriors carry angelic compassion and demonic resilience. They can walk through the darkest valley and still offer love. They don't fight with swords, they fight with presence. They disarm evil by refusing to hate. But within them is a fire that no one sees until it's needed. And when it's activated, they become a force that can't be stopped. The second type is the shadow priest/priestess. These are spiritual alchemists who walk between dimensions. They're not afraid of the underworld. In fact, they've made peace with it. These are the ones who can sit with your pain, hold your trauma, and not flinch. Because they've faced their own demons and befriended some of them. They don't see darkness as evil. They see it as unintegrated power. And their gift is helping others retrieve their lost fragments. They carry angelic healing and demonic insight. They can channel divine love and also read the hidden codes of suffering. People often mistake them for dark, but in truth, they are some of the most evolved souls walking the earth. They are not here to judge, they are here to transmute. But their pack is lonely, because most people fear what they've accepted, the full spectrum of the self. The third type is the rebel prophet. These are the chosen ones who were born allergic to authority. From a young age, they questioned everything: religion, politics, education, even their own parents. They carry the angelic frequency of truth and the demonic fire of rebellion. They are here to destroy illusions. They speak what others are afraid to say. They break spiritual bubbles. They challenge false gurus. And they often get labeled as heretics, cynics, or too intense. But their mission is not to be liked, it's to awaken. Their voice carries frequency. Their words are coded. They don't just speak, they activate. And when they walk into a room, systems destabilize. That's not arrogance, that's power. But that power must be tempered with humility, because if they're not careful, their fire can burn others before it heals them. Let me ask you something that only a soul like yours will understand. Have you ever felt like you were being pulled in opposite directions? One part of you wants to save the world, the other part wants to burn it all down. That's not madness. That's the calling. That's the signature of a soul carrying both angelic and demonic power. You are not torn. You are dynamic. You were never meant to choose a side. You were meant to embody the bridge. The fourth type of chosen one is the mirror soul. These are the ones who reflect others so clearly that people either fall in love with them or run from them. And here's why. The mirror soul carries both divine light and shadow so fully that simply being in their presence forces others to see themselves. They don't have to say much. Their energy does the work. They can walk into a room and people begin to feel exposed. Not because they're judging, but because they're mirroring. Mirror souls carry angelic empathy and demonic clarity. They see through masks. They feel the unspoken. And because of that, they often become scapegoats or secret crushes. People project onto them light or darkness because they awaken what has been repressed. But this gift is also a burden. Mirror souls often struggle with identity. Who am I really if everyone only sees their reflection in me? The answer? You are the neutral canvas that holds the entire spectrum, and that is sacred. The fifth type is the wounded gatekeeper. These are the souls who were born with immense power but were silenced, shamed, or abused for it. They carry codes from higher realms, but their early life was marked by suppression. They might have been intuitive children who saw spirits, had visions, or spoke profound truths and were told to shut it down. And so they grew up carrying divine light in a broken vessel. Their journey is the most painful, but also the most transformational. Because once they begin to heal, their power returns tenfold. They carry angelic memory and demonic endurance. They are the gatekeepers of ancient knowledge. But here's the twist. The gate they guard is inside them. And once they unlock it, they become walking temples. But to get there, they must face the deepest betrayal, the betrayal of their own voice. And when they reclaim it, the world shifts. The sixth type is the sacred trickster. These are the cosmic jokers. They carry the divine frequency of joy, play, and mischief, but also the chaos of unpredictable change. They are the shapeshifters, the ones who don't fit into spiritual boxes. One moment they're channeling angels, the next they're dropping F-bombs and laughing about the absurdity of it all. They carry angelic joy and demonic irreverence. They're here to break the rules, not out of spite, but out of truth. They remind us that enlightenment doesn't have to be serious, that God has a sense of humor, that chaos has its own intelligence. But don't mistake their laughter for foolishness. They are masters of energy. They can shift a room with a joke. They can break trauma patterns by refusing to play the victim. They are sacred, not in form but in function. And the world needs them more than ever. And finally, the seventh type is the anointed destroyer. These are the chosen ones who carry destructive power, but it's not evil. It's surgical. They are here to end cycles. They carry angelic purpose and demonic precision. They don't just break systems, they dismantle them with clarity. These are the ones who end relationships, quit jobs, destroy ideologies, not out of impulse, but because they know what no longer serves. And when they move, it's final. They don't just shift energy, they reset timelines. But that power comes with immense responsibility. If they act from ego, they create chaos. If they act from soul, they create freedom. And the key to their path is discernment. They must ask themselves constantly, am I destroying from love or from fear? Because when they're aligned, they are the most powerful force on the planet. Now here we are. You've heard these 7 types. Maybe you saw yourself in one. Maybe in all of them. That's the mystery of the chosen ones who carry both angelic and demonic energy. We are multiplicitous. We don't fit into neat categories. We evolve, we shapeshift, we integrate, and we remember. The divine split within, why the most powerful chosen ones are made of both light and shadow. I want you to sit with this truth. Real spiritual power doesn't come from being purely light. It comes from being whole. You are not here to amputate your shadow in order to be holy. You are here to integrate it. The most powerful chosen ones are not those who reject their darkness. They are those who have turned toward it, faced it, and learned to walk with it. Why? Because your shadow holds the exact energy needed to fulfill your mission. What you once thought of as your flaws, your rage, your lust, your fear, your defiance, these aren't stains on your soul. They are tools waiting to be purified through intention. The light without the shadow is fragile. It's naive. It's untested. But the light that has passed through shadow, that light is indestructible. It's not just illumination, it's illumination with roots. We're taught to suppress our demonic sides. But do you know what happens when we suppress something sacred? It doesn't go away, it festers. It becomes distorted. It leaks out sideways. The chosen ones who carry both angelic and demonic power must become masters of spiritual alchemy. Not suppression, not denial, but transmutation. If you feel rage, don't bury it, ask it what it's here to protect. If you feel lust, don't shame it, ask it what it's longing to connect with. If you feel chaos, don't fear it, ask what outdated structure it's trying to dismantle. You see, we were never meant to destroy our demons. We were meant to redeem them, because beneath every demon is a wounded angel, and beneath every shadow is a divine spark waiting to be seen. When you begin to integrate, something miraculous happens. You no longer fear yourself. You no longer walk around fragmented, constantly at war with your own nature. You become coherent. You become magnetic. People feel it even before you speak, this inner wholeness, this authenticity. You're no longer pretending to be good. You're being real. And that's what gives you power. That's what makes people listen to you without knowing why. Because you've done what most don't have the courage to do. You've faced your own depths. You've walked into your own underworld. And you've come back not as a victim, but as a guide. That's what makes your presence transformational. It's not that you have all the answers. It's that you've become the kind of person who's not afraid to ask the real questions. When you begin to integrate, something miraculous happens. You no longer fear yourself. You no longer walk around fragmented, constantly at war with your own nature. You become coherent. You become magnetic. People feel it even before you speak, this inner wholeness, this authenticity. You're no longer pretending to be good. You're being real. And that's what gives you power. That's what makes people listen to you without knowing why. Because you've done what most don't have the courage to do. You've faced your own depths. You've walked into your own underworld. And you've come back not as a victim, but as a guide. That's what makes your presence transformational. It's not that you have all the answers. It's that you've become the kind of person who's not afraid to ask the real questions. We need you to stop hiding your complexity. We need you to stop trying to be palatable to a world that only understands half the truth. We need your wrathful compassion, your fierce tenderness, your divine irreverence, because that's what breaks the spell of spiritual mediocrity. You weren't made to be a soft echo of someone else's teachings. You were made to be a living transmission of your own soul's integration. And when you live from that place, you become a frequency disruptor. You shake people out of their illusions, not by force, but by being who you truly are. You don't need to preach. You don't need to convert. Your presence alone becomes a portal, a mirror, a remembering. But let's be honest, this path is not easy. Integration is messy. There will be days when you feel like you're failing. When the old voices creep in, you're too much. You're not spiritual enough. You're dangerous. But those voices aren't your truth. They're echoes of a broken system that fears your power because it can't control it. And that's what makes you so rare. You don't fit into the lightworker box. You don't fit into the rebel archetype. You're both and neither. You're a paradox in motion, and that's where your genius lies, in the spaces between definitions, in the places where language breaks down and only frequency can speak. So how do you continue on this path without losing yourself? You root deeper into your own truth. You stop outsourcing your spiritual authority. You trust your inner voice more than any external teacher. And you practice radical honesty with yourself and with others. You don't pretend to be perfect. You don't hide your shadows. You show up as you are in process, in power, and presence. That's the real embodiment. Not some polished version of yourself, but the raw, sacred, integrated you. And when you do that, you give others permission to do the same. That's how we change the world. Not by becoming angels, not by becoming demons, but by becoming whole. The Integration Blueprint: How to Harness Dual Power Without Losing Your Soul. There comes a point on every chosen one's path where the question changes. It's no longer who am I, or why am I like this? The question becomes, now that I know what I carry, how do I wield it without it consuming me? Because knowledge is not power. Integration is. And integration is not just spiritual, it's strategic. It's not enough to awaken to your angelic and demonic nature. You must learn to direct it. You must build systems inside yourself that can hold both your light and your fire. You must create a sacred structure that can channel your chaos without becoming it. Because raw power without wisdom leads to collapse. But raw power with wisdom, that's revolution. The first step in this integration blueprint is to stop moralizing your energy. Your angelic side is not good and your demonic side is not bad. They are just different tools in your soul's toolbox. Your angelic aspect brings healing, clarity, compassion, expansion. Your demonic aspect brings boundaries, destruction, justice, transformation. One nurtures, one protects, one builds, one clears. The power comes in knowing when to use each. For example, your angelic energy might help someone heal, but your demonic energy might be what helps you walk away from someone who's draining you dry. Integration means you don't live in either extreme, you move fluidly between them based on what the truth of the moment requires. But to do this, you need rituals, sacred structure, inner discipline, not to control yourself, but to contain your power. Think of it like electricity. Raw electricity is dangerous, but when it's wired properly, it lights up cities. Your dual power is the same. You need spiritual practices that help you ground, cleanse, and recalibrate. Meditation is not optional for you, it's maintenance. Time in solitude, non-negotiable. Shadow work, ongoing. You're not doing these things to fix yourself, you're doing them to refine your vessel. Because the more refined your vessel, the more accurately you can channel the full spectrum of who you are. Integration isn't a one-time event, it's a lifestyle. A commitment to staying whole in a world that wants you divided. There's also an emotional mastery required, because carrying dual power means you'll feel everything more intensely. You'll feel the urge to love and destroy, to nurture and break free, to forgive and to burn bridges. And you'll feel all of it at once. This isn't confusion, it's capacity. But you must learn to sit inside the tension without reacting. That's your training ground. Can you hold fire in one hand and blessing in the other, and choose not based on impulse but based on intuition? Can you feel the chaos inside without projecting it onto others? Can you allow the storm to pass through you without becoming the storm? That's what separates an awakened soul from an integrated soul. The awakened one feels everything. The integrated one knows how to wield it. And then comes the hardest part, but also the most important. relationships. Because dual-powered chosen ones have a unique challenge in love, family, and friendship. Most people will either put you on a pedestal or pull you into the pit. They will either romanticize your light or demonize your depth. Few will see both and still love you. But you're not here to be easy to understand. You're here to be real. And that means you must stop shrinking to make others comfortable. Stop dulling your fire to keep the peace. Stop spiritualizing your trauma to avoid conflict. Speak your truth. Set your boundaries. Let people misunderstand you if they must. Because the ones who are meant to walk with you will not be afraid of your wholeness. They won't be intimidated by your duality. They'll honor it. And until those people arrive, your own self-honoring must be enough. And finally, your mission. You are not here to be a guru. You are not here to be a savior. You are here to be a mirror and a map. A living example of what it looks like to be fully human, fully divine, fully powerful, and fully grounded. You're here to show others that there is no shame in carrying both light and shadow. That transformation doesn't come from denying who we are. It comes from embracing all of it. So whatever your path, whether you're a healer, artist, entrepreneur, mystic, or rebel, infuse it with your integration. Let your work radiate coherence. Let your life reflect the harmony you fought so hard to build. Because in a world starving for authenticity, the most radical thing you can offer is your wholeness. When the world can't hold your power, standing alone as a whole being in a fragmented reality, there's something we rarely talk about on the spiritual path: what happens after the integration. After you've faced your demons, after you've wept in the arms of your angels, after you've walked into the fire and come out carrying the ashes of your former self like sacred incense. What happens when you've remembered who you are, when you're no longer afraid of your own intensity, when you no longer shrink to be digestible? I'll tell you, the world gets very quiet. Not because you've done something wrong, but because most of the world still operates in fragments. And when you show up whole, you become unreadable to the fragmented. You confuse them. You challenge their categories. You can no longer be used, defined, or manipulated. And that kind of freedom unnerves people who are still in their cages. You will notice a shift in your relationships. Some people will vanish, not out of malice, but because they no longer recognize the frequency you're transmitting. Others will try to pull you back into old patterns, old identities, old wounds, because your evolution makes their stagnation harder to ignore. And then there are the rare few who will move closer, who will see your fire and not flinch, who will feel your shadow and not project, who will stand beside you not in worship, not in resistance, but in recognition. These are your true allies, your soul kin. And they may be few, but they are enough. Because when a whole being meets another whole being, something ancient repairs itself in the field. Something holy. Something that ripples far beyond the moment. But until those connections deepen, you may find yourself walking alone. Not lonely, but unmatched. This is the wilderness phase, the sacred in between. You're no longer who you were, but not yet fully received in the world as who you've become. And it's easy to doubt yourself here. Easy to wonder if you've gone too far, become too intense, too sovereign, too free. But hear this clearly: you are not too much. You are finally enough for yourself. And that's why the world seems quieter. You're no longer reaching out for permission. No longer performing for love. No longer outsourcing your clarity. You've become the thing you were always seeking. You've become safe inside your own presence. And that, my friend, is liberation. Here's the paradox. The more whole you become, the more invisible you may feel at first. Because the world is calibrated to notice extremes: light without shadow, power without softness, spirituality without humanity. But you're not here to be noticed. You're here to be felt. and your energy is working in places your eyes cannot yet see. You're planting codes in conversations, in spaces, in moments. You're shifting timelines with your very breath. This is the work of the integrated soul. It's subtle, it's precise, and it's unshakable. You no longer need validation because you've become your own oracle. You no longer need applause because you've become your own witness. Still, the path ahead requires maintenance. Not because you're broken, but because you're sensitive by design. Your system, now refined, picks up everything. So you must protect your energy, not from fear, but from wisdom. You must choose your environments carefully, your conversations, your collaborations. Not every opportunity is your mission. Not every invitation is aligned. You are no longer here to chase, only to respond, to move when the signal is true, to speak when the words are alive, to act when the moment is ripe. This is what it means to live in spiritual sovereignty. You are no longer ruled by impulse or external pressure. You are ruled by alignment. And let me say this clearly, your shadow will still visit. Your fire will still rise. Your doubts will whisper in the night, but you'll no longer fear them. You'll greet them like old friends. You'll say, "Ah, there you are. What do you need to say today?" And sometimes they'll just want to be heard. Sometimes they'll have warnings. Other times they'll carry forgotten power. You don't resist them anymore. You listen. You integrate again and again, because this journey doesn't end. You don't graduate from being human. You just become better at it, more graceful, more honest, more whole. And that's what makes you rare, not your perfection, but your capacity to hold contradictions without collapsing. So here is my final question for you, one that only a truly integrated soul can hold without running. What if your greatest power isn't in the light you shine, but in the shadow you've made peace with? What if the very thing you thought disqualified you from being a chosen one is actually the mark of your chosenness? What if the way you rage, the way you cry, the way you fall apart is not weakness but initiation? Can you honor that? Can you live that? Can you teach others not by hiding your humanity but by embodying it fully? That is your next level. That is your service. That is your gift to the world, not just your healing but your wholeness. There are some people who don't belong to either heaven or hell. They're forged between the realms, carrying the softness of angels and the fire of demons. And if you've ever felt like your soul is a battleground, if there's a war inside you that never ends, not because you're broken, but because you're built for something more, then this message is for you. This isn't just another spiritual video. This is a decoding of your DNA, a remembering of why you walk with light in one hand and shadow in the other. You're not confused. You're complex. You're not unworthy. You're unstoppable. But only if you learn how to harness both forces within you. The world has always tried to divide us into categories, good or evil, light or dark, sacred or profane. But we're not here to fit into those binaries. We're here to embody the spectrum. The chosen ones who carry both angelic and demonic power are not here to be understood. They're here to be felt. When they walk into a room, systems tremble, not because they're loud, but because they carry a frequency that cannot be faked. They've suffered enough to understand silence. They've rebelled enough to value peace. They've burned enough to become light, and they've wept enough to become holy. Maybe you've been told that your intensity is too much, that your emotions are unstable, that your desire is dangerous. But what if I told you those things are not flaws, they're fuel? What if your rage is sacred? What if your lust is longing for union? What if your chaos is the catalyst for new creation? What if you were never meant to be one thing? What if you were designed to be the living paradox, the rebel healer, the joyful destroyer, the sacred storm? That's what we're exploring today. Not just the signs, not just the types, but the truth behind why some of us were born to hold both heaven and hell inside our chest and still choose love. You see, the 7 types of chosen ones who carry both angelic and demonic power are not archetypes to idolize or boxes to fit into. They're mirrors, blueprints, reminders that within you there are multiple currents running at once, each one ancient, each one divine. The silent warrior who holds fire behind calm eyes, the shadow priestess who sees beauty in pain, the rebel prophet who speaks with thunder, the mirror soul who reflects truth without a word, the wounded gatekeeper who guards sacred knowledge through scars, the sacred trickster who teaches through laughter and disruption, the anointed destroyer who burns illusions with precision, each one a fragment of the whole, each one an invitation to meet yourself more honestly. But here's what they don't tell you: carrying both angelic and demonic energy isn't just powerful, it's exhausting. Because the world doesn't know how to hold your wholeness. It wants you to be safe, predictable, categorized. But you weren't made for their comfort. You were made to awaken their remembrance. And that means you'll often walk alone. Not because you're unwanted, but because your frequency hasn't been matched yet. It means you'll be misread as arrogant when you're just anchored. You'll be seen as chaotic when you're just untamed. You'll be labeled intense because your depth scares those who've only lived on the surface. Let me ask you something that only someone like you will understand. Have you ever wanted to save the world and burn it down in the same breath? Have you ever felt divinely guided and completely lost at the same time? Have you ever held someone with so much love it broke you, and yet felt a rage inside so ancient it didn't even feel like yours? That's not madness. That's mission. That's the divine split within you. You are not here to choose a side, you are the side. You're the bridge, the in-between. The key that unlocks both heaven and hell and reminds them they're not enemies, they're siblings. They're part of the same story, your story.